Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. My name is Jackson Mummy, and each week we'll be bringing you updated information about the bar exam and what you need to do in order to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. Ready to get started? Let's jump to it. Hey everybody, welcome. Today is Wednesday, September 27th. September is almost done. That is amazing to me. I don't know, maybe it's my age. I get older, these months roll through, and we are still in results season from July and getting ready for February 2024. We've got our team of experts here with us. Tracy's here, Amanda, June, Brianna, Bobka's here with us today. Good to see you, Amanda. Glad that you could be here. See all of you. Welcome. Glad to have you. We've got some announcements and updates. We're going to talk about results that have come in the last week, and then we're going to take some student questions and answer those. And then Tracy's going to wrap up. I'm calling it Tracy's homily. I think in respect to her history as being not only a former judge, but a former pastor. And today you're talking about what, Trace?
Last place.
Okay, last place, not where we want to finish. So there we go. So anyway, it's good to see all of you with us. If you are here live, we're glad to have you. If you're watching the replay or watching or listening to the podcast, again, glad to have you. Every week we come to you with information about the bar exam and all things bar exam related. I do want to talk about a couple of quick announcements of things going on in the bar exam world that you may be hearing about that are not necessarily directly result. One of the things, which is a direct item, is California has raised the application fee by $200. So it's a strange thing to be doing when they're trying to be more inclusive and trying to make themselves better players in the world. Let's just raise the prices by a few $100s to take the exam. So that is kicked in. Make sure you're checking with the examiners if you're a Cal bar taker to see what your circumstance is. The other interesting note in California is the discussion again of a path to licensure that would not include the bar exam. We don't have any details yet, and the California Supreme Court will ultimately have to make this decision. The idea has been floated, and it's a good one, but like all things, the devil's in the details. You got to work full-time for a licensed California attorney for, I think it's 6 months. You've got to do a number of writing projects. Those writing projects have to be submitted to the bar examiners. Then you get evaluated. For some people, that's going to work, and for some, it's not. It's probably not going to apply to people that already took the exam. I think it's only going to be new graduates if it passes. And the point I want to make about this is that if you're a Cal bar taker and you're thinking, I'll just wait for this alternative licensure, don't do that. That's a bad plan. There is no guarantee it's going to be accepted. And even if it is accepted, I suspect most of our audience would not fall under that. So an interesting piece. Amanda, I know you track this equity in the law and in the bar pretty carefully. Do you have any thoughts as you're hearing about these changes?
Yeah, it's already like a huge financial burden for a lot of people to afford taking the bar exam. I know when I graduated many years ago, it was top on my mind. And it's also one of the reasons that I didn't even sign up for a review course when I first took the bar, like 11 or 12 years ago in New York, those financial barriers. And I know there are like certain programs and things paying over time and getting loans, but certainly this is not a small sum of money for someone.
Right.
I'd like to see maybe more transparency, like why the prices are being raised or the cost is being raised, increase operational costs or things. So instead of just raising the price, I'm not sure if they had any transparency in that, or if anyone knows if there was an explanation given.
No, there's no transparency on it. I think it mirrors what happened in New York. Remember a couple of years ago in New York, did a lot of things to try and keep the number of applicants down. I think it's an attempt at changing the scope of who's taking the exam. So it's interesting. I will say in terms of our course in the bar review, not only do we try to keep the course prices affordable, but we have partnered with Klarna and Afterpay to allow customers of Celebration Bar Review to pay for their courses over a 4-month period, interest-free, and It's a pretty simple process. You just click on the order form and you'll see the option for Klarna or Afterpay, and you can use one of those two. So that's another way that people can afford the various products and services. So Bob, you got any thoughts about this equity and pricing in the bar exam?
I think for me, it's just an exclusionary rule. And at the same time, it's all these barriers that are being set up to limit the number of attorneys, which doesn't make sense, because I think there's a much more pressing need for attorneys, and it should be more of being inclusive than exclusive. But I always say there are multiple ways to skin a cat. There are other jurisdictions that are much more cost efficient, and they will willingly open their arms to take you. Georgia, for example, is one of them. I don't think Georgia is jacking up their prices anytime soon.
Yeah, I like that idea. And we have recommended is that if you're in California or Florida, which are the two most expensive jurisdictions to apply for and go through, and the most difficult tests, obviously, that you may want to consider switching to the UBE and getting your score applied across multiple jurisdictions. So between Amanda and Brianna, I think the two of you probably are qualified in something like 40 states. There's a value to doing that, and you may want to consider it. Those tests in California and Florida are very difficult. And to be sure, we don't know what's going to happen down the road. We don't know what's going to happen in 2026 or 27 with those two exams. It's going to be a continuing source of discussion in the next generation exam. So there's a lot going on there. All right, I just wanted to put that out there. Let's talk a little bit about results around the country that have come in the last week. It was a pretty quiet week. After we finished the Florida results, in the last week, we only had 4 or 5 jurisdictions that reported results out. Maine reported their results. They had a 68% first-time pass rate and a 20% repeater pass rate, but only 150 bar takers. That was Maine. That's a UBE jurisdiction. Another UBE jurisdiction was Montana, and Montana had almost as many people as Maine, 110 bar takers. They had a 43% repeater rate and an 82% first-time rate. And so I know sometimes people say, based on that, should I go to Montana? No, same test. It's just who is taking the exam, I think, more than anything else. Oregon, also a UBE jurisdiction, also the only jurisdiction right now with an alternative path to licensure, but there are still people that have to take the exam. They actually had 426 bar takers, 69% pass rate for overall, 30% for repeaters. So we're seeing that 30% number come up, both in Florida and a couple other jurisdictions. And then finally, Wyoming was our last jurisdiction. Only 49 people took the exam. So I don't know what you can make of this. 80% overall pass rate, 56% for repeaters. That's all we've got in the way of results. Not a whole lot that's significant there in terms of numbers of people. So now what happens is we go into the waiting mode for New York. And if you're not familiar, I'm sure all of you who are New York bar takers are aware of this. You just go to sleep one night and you wake up and there's an email in your email box that says New York results are out. And that's how you find out. There's no date given. It just happens. And you go from there. I would expect New York results in the next week. That's my spidey sense. I don't know. Sometimes I'm perfectly on it. Sometimes I miss it by a lot. Once New York releases, then we'll watch for New Jersey to release. I think we have Texas coming up first part of October. So we've got a couple of big jurisdictions, and good luck to everybody there. The protocol, again, is that if you took those exams, if you're successful, please let us know so we can share your success and celebrate with you. And if you were not successful, and I think I'd rather use that term than if you failed, if you were not successful on the exam, then please send your score sheets to me. I will make a video for you, personalized, of recommendations and suggestions for you, and we try to get those done pretty quickly. I think we've gotten all of those out in Florida that came out. One note I want to just point out in the Florida results in our students, and of course it's all self-reported, but in Florida, we only had 8 or 9 students that did not pass the exam. And of those 8 or 9, 5 of them passed either Part A or Part B, and their overall score was within 3 points of passing. Very close and getting part of it done. And the reason I point that out, I rarely talk about specifics like that, but that tells me that people are inching closer and the performance was generally better. We had a ton of people that passed in Florida, and we're doing interviews with those that are willing. But I'm encouraged by that. What's your take, Brianna, as you look at this? I think it's a good trend, don't you?
With regards to Florida,
Yeah.
absolutely. Florida's kind of always been this sweet spot, but it's also one of the hardest jurisdictions. And so it's really exciting to see so many of our students cross that finish line and or get so close that we know we're going to get them there the second time or the next time around. It's very heartwarming for us, and it should be uplifting for you guys to see your peers get closer and closer.
Yeah, I really am encouraged by that. And I tend to be, Tracy called me morose in my numbers last week, but I'm pretty, after 30 plus years, you see these numbers and you're like, eh. But these numbers are actually pretty good. And I know it's frustrating. Frustrating is probably too light a word, isn't it? That you get that close and you don't get over the top. But to Brianna's point, if you're that close, you will pass. That's what we know. And so that's what we're looking for in those results. Any other comments about results of any of the panels? There's not a whole lot to say. They're just small numbers, really, at this point. New York's a big one. We're waiting for that, and we're waiting for Texas, those two. I think we'll see those.
Failing by a couple of points, it hurts. But at the same time, it should give you that reassurance that what you're doing is good, is great. You just need to push even harder. Coming from somebody who failed by 8 points, trust me, I've never felt so bad. But on the flip side, I was like, if I'm close by 8 points, what's to say I can't just put in an extra effort and go beyond the line? And hey, surprise, I'm on the other side. So it's totally doable. It's just more of looking past that score and putting it's either all or nothing.
Yeah, I want to switch to a question we got this week because it's on this topic, and I think it makes sense to talk about it here. A student that studied with us and came up a couple points short in Florida said, the question I have for you is, what are you going to do differently for me in the February exam insofar as essays are concerned? I ended up with a similar result with subject matter that I know generally well. I practiced under test conditions. I performed in the exam the same manner as in practice. What are you going to do differently? And the implication was, should we tell this student, skip FLA, write differently, go to IRAC writing or memorize or do something else? And I'll open it up to the panel in a minute, but here's my response. The FLA writing system works. It works really well. The people that you see sitting here, Brianna, Bobka, Amanda, all used it, along with hundreds and hundreds of others, I don't know, thousands after all these years. And it works, and I'm not abandoning that. And I know that it's frustrating when you put in the effort and you come up short, but you don't scrap that. I think that's really the point. You find the other tools. And so we're going to talk about some of those tools in a minute, but one of them is PhotoReading and the other is coming to Bootcamp. And I think those are the things you do differently for this particular student. My recommendation was add those pieces, but don't change what you're doing. You're coming within a point or two. It's not that you have to scrap that, it's that you add to it. Amanda, you're shaking your head. You agree with that philosophy?
Yeah, and we've had lots of students coming to coaching calls early on, which I absolutely say take advantage of that, especially if you're a repeat taker, you're thinking you're going to be a repeat taker, you're trying to go into another jurisdiction, to talk through these issues. And it's okay to have that doubt, but we're not going to reinvent the wheel here. And I tell all the students, I didn't invent this. Like, this is proven time and again to work, and we've seen it pay off in coaching. Those of us who do the coaching and students get packages, their writing improves so much from beginning to end, and they see it. We have students willing to come back and coach, willing to give testimonials. It does work. And coming within a few points is just what it is. Like, it's a few points. There are plenty of people who don't get that passing score first or second time around. That means you're right there. If you scored 1 point this way, you can get 1 point the other way. Obviously, we want to get a bigger buffer for you, but I think you got to recommit. You have to recommit to the process and commit more than you did last time, because I feel like if you do every single thing that is taught and you really buy in and get that mindset, that you're going to get over the finish line.
Yeah. When I created this writing system, which was 30 plus years ago at Georgetown, there were certainly skeptics. There were people that said, this is stupid and ridiculous. But here's the thing that I had learned. I worked for this attorney. She wasn't Tracy Dawson back then. She was Tracy Porter. And Tracy Porter taught me something about writing, which was just say what you need to say. Don't mess around. Just get to the point. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do actually.
And here it is 35 years later, and we're still teaching it.
Yeah, I didn't have a label for it, but that's exactly what it is, and exactly what it is when I'm on the bench and I'm looking for someone's argument. When I've talked about that. Why are you in my courtroom? Why are you spending my time? Get to the point.
And that get to the point writing works, and it worked well. I would say in the first 10 years of Celebration Bar Review, there were moments when I thought, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe everybody is right and IRAC writing is the way to go. But I can confidently tell you now, 30 plus years later, that if I had a choice, between teaching IRAC and FLA, there's no doubt in my mind, FLA is a far superior writing system. It's much easier to master and you get a better score. And the only reason we talk about IRAC is because the big box bar reviews are lazy. They don't want to teach you something different. So they just say, do what you did in law school. So you take your law school issue spotting approach, and nobody's interested in spotting issues. The client isn't interested in paying for it. Juries don't want to hear it. Judges don't want to hear it. Opposing counsel will sanction you for it. Nobody's interested in IRAC writing. And so when people IRAC on the bar exam, they're just counting on the fact that so many people are using IRAC that the examiners have to deal with it. But I have never read anything from any bar examiner anywhere in the country that says, we love issue spotting. Just never seen it. So it's one of those myths that's out there. And I want people to understand that if you choose to use IRAC writing, that's your choice. It's your journey. But there's no magic bullet there. And the pass rate of the big box bar reviews would make it very clear that it's not a so magic bullet either. It's not going to get you over the top. So, June, you got something to say about mindset there, about this approach? Because Amanda opened that door.
I get that it's frustrating, and it's really easy to look outside of ourselves at the tools we're using and go, oh, something must be defective. And 9 out of 10 times I talk about this on my group coaching call, when people say, June, I've tried everything. I did everything. My question to them is always, but did you really look back and think about it? Could I have done a little bit more here? Or could I have done a little bit more there? Or what was my focus? Well, June, my focus was passing. Well, that's a problem, because that means you're not in the process. If that's where your focus is all the time, you're not right now into the study and the learning, which is the most important part. Again, I would say let's reflect on it a little bit and take a breath, because it is frustrating when you're just a few points away. And it's really hard to get back in the game, so to speak. But the best thing you can do is let it go and go again. Go again. We've had a few students, 2 points, 1 point, like 3 times they did that, and they had to go again. And I've seen them dig deep. I've seen them just really dig deep. And that very next time, boom, they passed.
Yeah, I think this is a good way to.
I want to validate that it's there, but use it for your energy. Use it to push you through. Like Amanda said, there's always something more, something to tweak, something to get a little bit better that can get you that 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, and the thing that we're going to suggest, and I think this is a good way to talk about it now, is come to the live boot camp. We've already gotten empirical proof. We've had a couple of people that were boot campers that were close, didn't pass, came to boot camp and passed the exam in the last testing result. And we have not gotten to the big jurisdictions yet for boot campers. We haven't done UBE in most of the big states. We're going to get more results, and I'm sure they're going to be favorable. We had Dan on here last week, and he was a perfect example. He had failed the exam by 5 points, I think, and had taken the exam 4 times and came to boot camp. And he did exactly what the panel's talking about. He bought into the process, and I did an interview with Dan yesterday, and we're going to get it out next week. And he says, I just bought in. I just did what you asked me to do. And I came away from boot camp knowing that I had a team behind me, that people believed in me, that I could do this. And he brought his score up and passed easily. That's what happens. So I want to talk a little bit about boot camp. It is coming up November 3rd and 4th here in Denver. We still have spots open. I'm really excited about what we're doing with boot camp. We haven't had Amanda on for a couple of weeks, so we haven't given you the chance yet, but we're going to make you do a lot of work at boot camp, aren't we?
Yeah, and I'm really excited. I missed out on boot camp because I was a pandemic person. So I was taking during the pandemic, and I even got COVID during my studies. But I was talking to some students in group coaching who signed up, and I think it's going to be great to meet people in person, to network, to connect. The preparing for the bar is so much more than just learning the law. And that's really what we got June here. She can tell us all about that. But I think boot camp is a great way to wring it out and reset. You're just wringing out all the bad or the experiences you want to get rid of, and you're starting off on the right foot. And with the fact that we have a timeline to the bar, I think that starting off on the right foot, developing good habits from the beginning, identifying who your mentors are going to be, and identifying and connecting with the group coaches, all these resources that are here that just aren't in other bar review courses, but are so important, especially for repeat takers. It's that opportunity in boot camp to do that. So I'm excited that I got invited, even though I'm not technically a boot camp alum.
Yeah, we're going to have you doing 2 of your workshops, basically in small group settings. You're going to be teaching multiple choice preparation and performance test preparation. So that's great opportunity for live instruction, probably in groups of 5 or less, so that you get this opportunity as a student to do your work and see the response of other people and see Amanda's response. Tracy, you're going to be teaching essay writing to our small groups again. Dan talked about how valuable it was to be in those small groups and hear you talk about the writing, not just his writing, but other people's writing. There's a real benefit to that, isn't there?
That sideways learning can be very important. When you have ears to hear, and that's when you come to boot camp, you're there to hear from other people as well as to hear from us. And there's really a great component when I'm working one-on-one with a student and someone else is not in the hot seat, but can listen to what's going on, look at their own essay, listen to what the other student did, and listen to what I'm saying about that. I saw tremendous improvement in essay writing just overnight, because light bulbs were just going off all over the place for people.
Yeah, it's powerful. And one of the other benefits that we're offering is that when you register for boot camp, you will be invited to do a one-on-one time management workshop with Brianna prior to boot camp. Brianna, what's the value to doing that workshop before you come to boot camp?
It allows you to start now. You don't have to wait until boot camp in order to start your studies and get a schedule set up. If you've signed up for boot camp, you can schedule your session with me as soon as June releases everything and tells you when you can do it. And we will set up a schedule for you to start studying wherever you're at today and get it broken down kind of week by week, get your guideposts set up to have you completed with your studies in time to move into the review phase and get everything done that you need to get done in time for the bar exam to help reduce all of that anxiety and overwhelm, because it is a ton of material and I can help you break that down into bite-sized pieces. That is way more manageable.
Yeah. So just to recap, what you're getting at boot camp is the photo reading course that's valued at $400. You're getting the mind mapping course that I teach that's valued at $200. You're getting Brianna's time management that's valued at $200. You're getting the essay writing from Tracy that's valued at $400. The performance test writing from Amanda valued at $400. The multiple choice training from Amanda also valued at $400. The calming the chaos, we're going to talk about that in a moment with June, also valued at $400. Now, I went to law school because I can't do math, but I'm pretty sure that's a big number that's a big value. Bob was laughing. He's like, yeah, dude.
It's a big number, and what you need to hear is we're not going to offer the boot camp again at this price. We have talked about it, and we can't do it for the price that we're offering to you, and it's worth every penny of it. So sign up now, because the price is going to go up. Price goes up after October 3rd, but for the next round of boot camp, and yes, we are going to present it for July 2024 test takers. You can reserve your price now and sign up for that, but we're not going to offer the same price.
And to those of you that are taking the exam in July 2024, we want you to come to the November boot camp. And the reason we want you to come to the November boot camp is we want to give you enough time to take advantage of all of these tools and really build them into your system. So if you're studying with us now and you're taking the exam anytime in 2024, you should be looking at boot camp. I think that's part of it. But Tracy mentioned, as of October 3rd, we are raising the price for the November boot camp. So to lock in your price at the current $2,000, you need to fill out the application. There's a refundable $100 application fee. We do screen who's going to be admitted in. This is a limited enrollment event, and so we want to make sure we've got the right mix of people and the right circumstances. So you fill out your application, we review it, and then if we select you, you get a golden ticket and you're set to come out here. You can pay for boot camp over 8 months through us. You can pay 4 months without an interest charge through Klarna or Afterpay. You can make a single lump sum payment if that's easier for you. You have a lot of different choices here. The other thing I'll tell you is that I've had some people say to me, I'm going to miss work. Okay, let's get real here. You probably miss part of the day on Thursday and all day Friday because that's boot camp. We finish on Saturday, you fly home on Sunday. So you're missing a day and a half of work. For the investment you've made in law school and taking the bar exam, a day and a half of work can survive without you for a day and a half. The other thing is that Denver is a hub, and there are many airlines that fly here. Spirit, if you feel so inclined, but Frontier and United and Delta and Southwest all fly in here. And there are a bazillion hotels. That's a scientific number, Tracy. Bazillion hotels located within about 5 miles of the boot camp location. We're also going to pay for your lunches on Friday and Saturday and your dinner on Friday. So this is a very, very economical opportunity. And the reason we're talking about raising the price later for the next boot camp is that we just have put so much value into this thing that we really need to make it a little more reflective of all of that. Now, one of the questions we got this week about boot camp, a student said they were reading the information about calming the chaos, the coaching, one-on-one coaching that June does, and that's a $400 package. And they said, am I going to get that at boot camp? And June, I'm going to let you respond to that. And you wrote a great answer. I don't know if you want to read the answer or just talk about it, but I thought your response was really good.
Yeah, so what I responded was that calming the chaos, which is one-on-one mindset coaching, so just the student and myself, that goes further in depth compared to what we're going to provide at boot camp. Now, boot camp is undoubtedly beneficial for enhancing your mindset, and we're going to work on that. But calming the chaos is designed for students who absolutely want to go deeper or feel like they have a safe place to share. Sometimes in a group setting or on a group call, we don't really want to share something that might be going on in our life that's holding us back. And so calming the chaos gives you that space where you can share it. It's confidential. We don't record it. It's just you and me talking. And we can go much deeper than we can in any group setting. Now, with that said, boot camp is going to be a lot of fun, and we are going to work on your mindset. But calming the chaos, like I said, is just a deeper experience, depending on what you believe you need and the level of support.
And I think that's true for all of these, the essay writing, the performance test, the MBE, all of those pieces. You're going to get the essence of it. in a way that I think makes it pretty valuable. I'll just wrap up by saying about boot camp. If you tell me that you're serious about passing the bar, and then you tell me you're not coming to boot camp, there's a disconnect.
I just want to say, if you're on the fence about boot camp, I want you to ask yourself this. If you're a photo reader, because Brianna talked about this last week, are you questioning at any time, one, does this really work, or is this just BS? Number two, am I doing it correctly? Okay, that's photo reading. Essay writing. I write great essays. Great. Have you ever had anyone give you feedback on that essay? No. Then how do you know you write great essays? Or I hear this a lot. June, I don't know how to start. I get stuck and then I lose hours and time. Boot camp is going to resolve photo reading. You're going to know it works. Trust me, Jackson is going to prove it there. You're going to realize you're doing it the right way. You're going to correctly learn how to do it. And with essay writing, you're going to learn how to properly write an FLA essay. Just if you got those two things, I think the entire value, not counting anything else from boot camp, is worth it, because those two things alone right there can help you pass.
Okay, so come to boot camp, register. Price goes up October 3rd. Don't miss out.
Just like Amanda, I am coming from a biased position because I didn't have bootcamp because it's in the middle of COVID. But I would say if you have the all-star cast in a single building, Brianna, Tracy, Jackson, Amanda, June, that is the all-star cast. And if you have all of them saying, hey, come, let's have a party so that you have a bigger party down the road when you pass the bar exam, I would say sign me up. Show me where to sign and I'm ready to go. Because there is nothing compared to when you pass the bar exam. I have a friend who got in trouble with his wife because he said that was the best feeling he ever had when he passed. And then his wife was like, are you crazy? When you have this all-star cast, it's priceless. You can ask Jackson, Brianna, Amanda, Tracy, June. They are there to help you. And trust me, our intentions are for you to get on the other side of the bar. So I would say go for it. If you're thinking about missing, work is going to be fine. Work is going to be fine with or without you. If in the unlikely scenario something happens to you, work is still going to move on. But what are you doing to pass the bar exam? Boot camp is your answer.
Yeah, and we've got to get Bobcat to the boot camp here as well.
I know, Sam. We're gonna have everybody there soon.
we're getting there, so we're excited about it. Anyway, we're very excited about it. Please don't be left out. It will make a difference for you.
If you have not gotten your results yet and you're on the fence about boot camp, or you think you want to go to boot camp, and then you've paid the application to come to boot camp, and then you find out you passed, just remember that the money that you put towards that is refundable to you. Okay, so just
yes, good point. You're not going to be out anything. Okay. Yeah, and we've got some people in that situation for sure. So we know late results come out, but we wanted to give people enough time from boot camp to get ready for the February exam. So that's the reason for the date. Good. Thank you very much for that. All right. So we had a student ask, what's the shortest study session that you should be able to do? In other words, should you study, if you can only study for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 minutes, how does that work? Brianna, let me throw that back to you because it came up in your group coaching call. What was your answer to that student?
Yeah, so my recommendation was that you don't really sit down to do a real study block session for less than about an hour. I feel like it does take you a minute to get into it and get in the groove, especially if you're listening to a lecture and getting your stuff together and turning it on. And so I feel like an hour is that sweet spot of you being able to really dig in and do some real learning. I definitely recommend, if you have the time, to start studying in those 3-hour blocks in preparation for the 3-hour blocks of the exam. If you can get in that 3-hour block, take a break, another 3-hour block, great. That's the sweet spot right there. But if you're trying to find 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, if you can pull an hour, that's my minimum recommendation.
Yeah. Amanda, do you have a thought about that?
Yeah, I think so too. You're looking for quality. I think this course is really about quality over quantity too. So you want quality sessions. I'm not a big believer in and I think you've said this too, Jackson, I'm going to go for a 30-minute run and listen to an audio. You're better off just clearing your mind and going for a run, or I'm going to do this while I'm doing something else. I can say the one thing I did used to do is I did used to go for runs. Actually, this is funny, I think, and listen to the recorded webinars because I was working during the day. And that was good too, because I wasn't studying. I was just hearing advice and affirmation and that did help. But if I'm going to do studying, I want to be focused on that. And I think you're better off just not mixing your studying with multitasking, especially because in this course, we're working on selective intuition and having things be more natural, not memorization, doing something else or multitasking. It's really better to sit down for those longer study blocks and take breaks as needed. Of course, if you need to get up and stretch for 5 minutes or whatever, sure, but try to get the good quality time in.
I forgot to mention that now, if you're towards the review phase of your studying, or you're doing MBE questions, I found no problems whatsoever just grabbing that book or printing out a couple of questions or doing some questions on your phone while I was waiting for doctor's appointment or an oil change, or when you're doing something mindless, I was able to make incremental progress just doing things like that and continuing to move forward in my studies. So if you're in that kind of section, you're fine. Just grab the book and go and do some questions.
Yeah, along those lines, we got a question from a student about, can I do MBE questions that don't have answers that immediately follow? I'm trying to get my timing down and do some other things. And we had an interesting conversation before we went live today. But here's my take on this. It's all about when you do that. Brianna just talked about, if you're in the review section, then I think you probably do want to do a block of questions without stopping to review the answer explanations. And the way you do that in our course probably is to download the PDF, print it out, or if you have printed books, and then just put a piece of paper over the answer discussion and just move that way through it. We produce all of the initial couple hundred questions in each subject with an answer explanation behind it for a reason. And the reason is that early on in your studies, as you're going through those first couple hundred in each subject, we want you to do a question, see the answer explanation, add it to your mind map, and then go on to the next one. So it's about the point in your studies that you're at. I know for this particular student that asked the question, I know where they are in their studies, and they should not be doing blocks of questions yet. They should still be doing a question, an answer, a question, and an answer, and so on. Bob, does that make sense to you?
For me, the study guide is the holy grail. You don't want to jump around and then all of a sudden you confuse yourself. So it's more of go with what the study guide says, and then when that time comes now for the review, you're intentional about the review, not just answering the questions for answering sake. So I would say follow the study guide, and then when that review comes now, be intentional about it, because that is where now you rein in the material, quality over quantity.
Yeah. I designed the course to be repetitive and to build on itself. There is a transition in the course when you go from that initial learning into the review, and that's where timing really starts to become important. So when we get to January and February, timing really does matter, and then I think it makes sense. What I would do right now, because I just use the online question and answers, because it keeps track of how you're doing, and you hit your answer and it gives you the explanation immediately, and I think there's value to that, and then get it into your mind map. So that's my response. Along those same lines, we had another question about the MPTs. MPTs, or performance tests if you're in California, but multi-state performance tests in Georgia and UBE, those are 90-minute exams, and you don't always get 90 minutes blocked out in your schedule. What do you do with that? My answer is save it for the weekend, save it for the time when you've got 90 minutes, but don't do a performance test in chunks. Don't split it up and then come back to it and do a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here. Amanda, you teach our MPT workshop. Is that consistent with what you tell people?
Yeah, I think you have to get that endurance up and get what it feels like, even if your first couple aren't that great and your timing's not that great. The only time I tell people to do something in chunks for MPT is if it's like specifically the performance test I'm giving, and I give the feedback on the first half and I say, why don't you now go give yourself 45 minutes and try to implement what I said in the second half, especially when we're in like crunch time with a week left in the bar exam. But you don't want to like till the bar exam, you don't want to be there. You want to give yourself your full 90 minutes, practice that timing. A lot of students are bringing up in group coaching timing as an issue too. And it's just practice, is practicing what 90 minutes feels like, and the concentration for 90 minutes, and what the timing of each portion of the MTPT feels. So
Yeah.
the only way
Yeah.
to do that is to sit down for 90 minutes. And trust me, nobody didn't want to do that more than me, especially for the MPT. I was like very avoidant of that task.
Yeah, there's a certain irony that you're teaching it now, but
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay, so I think that gives you a sense. I want to jump to another question about sort of the mechanics of study. A student said, I know you mentioned this in a lecture that I've listened to, but can you refresh my recollection? What's the general rule on mind maps regarding how many levels or layers you go before you create a new subtopic mind map? This is a really interesting question. I was fascinated with it. Here's the way I do mind mapping. I take the table of contents and I make one main map from the big table of contents. Then I go to a second level mind map with the A, B's, C's of each of those main topics. And then I go potentially, if it's a big subtopic like negligence or hearsay, then I'll go to a third level there. If you've got our BarMaps program, you will see that structure. We've done that for you, already built out. I think if you go beyond 3 levels, you could be getting to the point where it gets to be too much. On the other hand, I don't want a mind map that's so crazy that you can't figure out what it means. So I think you have to be mindful of that, but you want it to be useful for you. And if you could put too much on the paper, it doesn't work. But you don't need like 7 or 8 mind maps within a subject. That's my take.
I also think I love that advice, but I also think this is one of those questions too, where it's like, are you thinking too much of trying to get started and have it work for you? I will say, I think mind maps helped me incredibly, but I didn't think too much about it. But we get a lot of questions about mind maps. What colors should I use? How many colors? Should I do it on the computer? Should I write it? And we all have our different opinions, theories, and some things we generally stick to, but also just try it. Just try to do the exercise of how you visually see something and go at it. I just want to just caveat with that. I love everything you said, Jackson, but also don't think too much about the rules of mind mapping, because just like anything else, there's no magic formula. Oh, my mind maps are superior to Brianna's because I followed some for.
That's right. And at Bootcamp, we do mind mapping, and then we do something called a gallery walk, which is really a fascinating experience. We have people create their mind maps, and then they get up and they walk around the room and they see everybody else's mind maps. Tracy, that was an interesting experience, wasn't it, to watch people at Bootcamp after they had done mind mapping?
Yeah, it was, because it's a concept that sounds so easy until you sit down to try to do it. And I agree with what Amanda just said. You have to do the visual mind mapping in a way that's going to fit you the best. And I think you want to look ahead and say, all right, when it's down to the day before the exam, for example, do I really have time to look at this dense forest that I've created? No, you don't. But if you can have a separate mind map for the table of contents, you're going to get in your mind the relationships between the concepts, and then you can go to your more specific one. It's like anything else. If you put too much on the page, you're not going to get the meat of it. So it's not that different from FLA in a lot of respects. You're looking for a concise way to get information into your brain where you can recall it at the time that you need it. And so they're all interrelated in terms of how we do things.
Yeah. June, did you have something you wanted to add?
We'll talk more about this on my group coaching call. But I think it's also very important to know what your learning style is. There's 3 major learning styles, and that is visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So which one are you? If you're visual, then you visually want to mind map maybe while going through the lecture. Okay, that gives you that visual aid. If you're auditory, then you may need to listen to a lecture before you mind map. Okay, in other words, doing both is probably not the best. If you're kinesthetic, that's a texture, a feel. I'm a kinesthetic learner, meaning I need to touch it. I gotta know how it feels. Even with clothes, I'm that way. And so for me, it is about, how does my marker feel? How does my paper feel? And then I'm able to create amazing mind maps. But that is part of my learning process. So know your learning process, or how you learn the best, and then quit and stop overthinking. And it will flow. You'll find that it flows instead of struggling.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. Those are great responses. I wanted to just share a comment we got this week about group coaching that I thought was really interesting. We had a student that said, last year, you recommended that I make time for group coaching calls, but I didn't because I was overwhelmed. Now I wanted to email and share with you that as part of Jackson's insistence on doing things intentionally, deliberately, and thoroughly, I carved out the time, put a group coaching call in my calendar, and I attended Amanda's group coaching session. It was so good. She is so great. Congratulations. That's very nice. I agree. I listened to other bar takers. I felt when I could contribute. I asked questions and I got clarity. The hour with Amanda put a kick in my step. Every little bit counts. And we could substitute Amanda's name with Brianna or Bobka or Tracy. Those group coaching calls are so good. Amanda, that's way cool. I wanted to share that, but that was really nice.
Thanks,
Yeah,
whoever
yeah,
wrote
great.
it. But yes, every little bit counts. And group coaching is just as good because you get to hear your peers too. It's not just
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
it's the group we
yeah.
have together in this community.
Yeah, and boot camp is the group coaching writ large. It's 2 full days of that. Pretty cool. I think those are most of the questions that we got this week. I wanted to leave some time for Tracy to talk about being in last place. This scares me. I don't know where we're going, but Tracy, I'm going to turn it over to you. What's last place about today?
It's been a really hard week to be a sports fan in Colorado. You may have heard, CU, that we were also high on this new program, got completely smushed by Oregon. And then the next day, oh my goodness, we broke so many NFL records by losing to the Miami Dolphins 70-20. How does that happen in pro football? 70-20. And then yesterday, I learned that my beloved Rockies, I'm a huge Rockies fan, also set a franchise record. They lost 100 games this year. They've never lost 100 games before. I'm looking at the social media comments, and of course, we need to fire the coaches. We need to fire the ownership. We need to do this. We need to do that. And you know, the players aren't saying anything like that. The players are going to finish out their 6 games for baseball. The players for the Broncos are going to show up against the Bears on Sunday and do their best to win that game. CU is going to make some adjustments, do their work, and show up again against USC Jackson. They may beat USC. So I don't want to hear from you. The point is that when you are in last place, it's not the time to quit. It's not the time to give up. You're not going to see these players give up and not show up to the next training camp, their boot camp. You're not going to see them go get fat over their off season and be down in the dumps about it. No, what you're going to see from professionals, and you all are professionals, by the way, you're all professionals, is they're going to start working with the tools. They're going to go to the batting cages more. They're going to work on their infield and outfield defense more. They're going to work with their coaches and listen to what their coaches say. And they're going to work with their teammates and get the group attitude to where it needs to be to come in and win. Now, even though the Rockies lost 100 games, they beat the Dodgers yesterday. And so there's always hope that they can do it again. And I will watch again and again because I don't give up either. And I don't give up on you. we don't give up on you. So for the one student who said, what are you going to do to make it work for me? I am going to ask that question back to that student. What are you going to do to make this work for you? What are you going to do to get out of last place? What are you going to do to be better in every opportunity that you have when the season starts again? Go Rockies. By the way, I'm going this weekend to watch the St. Louis Cardinals play the Cincinnati Reds. And if you know anything about baseball, you heard and know that the Cardinals are a great baseball team. Guess what, guys? They're in last place and they're not going to the playoffs. It can happen anywhere. They're going to be back next year too.
There you go. And by the way, USC is going to annihilate Colorado. little family rivalry here. In any event, glad to have all of you with us this week. Tracy, thank you. I think that's really important. As results come out, it's easy to cast yourself as a failure if you did not succeed on the exam. That's the wrong message to take away. You're a success by just having the ability to come to the exam, and you can do it. And we see exam after exam, people get through that. I did an interview with a Florida bar taker a couple of days ago. We just posted it, who took the exam 5 times. She has a young family, she had work, she had all these things going on. She just continued to persist and to work through, and she passed. And when I asked her what it was like to pass, you can imagine the response. It's, oh my gosh, I did it. I didn't give up. You just can't give up. And I hope that the results are favorable for all of you still waiting from the July exam. If they are not favorable, however, this is not the time to give up. It's the time to lean into it, double down, come to boot camp. Let us show you the tools that you need in order to make those results what you need them to be. That's why we do boot camp. That is literally why we do boot camp. And so we hope you'll join us for that. I want to thank the panel. It's so much fun to have all of you here. Tracy and Brianna and Bobka, June, Amanda, this is awesome. I have so much fun with all of you guys here. It's an all-star lineup, let me tell you. And we will be back again next Wednesday. And I think we're going to have some New York results. That's my spidey sense. So we'll see if I'm right about that or not. And hope everybody has a great study week, great weekend. And I don't know what Tracy's doing now.
It's the rally cap.
Oh, it's the rally cap. Okay, fine. All right. So we'll rally and we'll see how it goes. But again, thanks everybody for being with us. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.